Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
And welcome back. It's America's Heroes Group Roundtable with our partner, Chicago Regional Office Veterans Benefits Administration. Today is Saturday, October 9th, 2021. October is National Breast Cancer and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I am Sean Claiborne, National Guard veteran, Illinois Army National Guard. Cliff Kelly is our host. Executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And today we have a couple of familiar voices, and if you're looking on our social media, you'll see their faces, a familiar face. Rich Lopresti, he is a U.S. Army veteran, Intelligence Military Command and Chicago Regional Office of Public Affairs and Management Analyst within the Director's Office. And John Pennington, he's a retired U.S. Army officer and Chicago Regional Office Assistant at the Veterans Service Center Manager. So today we're going to talk about a couple of things which is going to probably take us to a lot of different directions, but we're going to bring it into one specific thing. We're talking about the health and the care of disabled veterans and people suffering ailments, and in particular the extension of the presumptive period for compensation for Persian Gulf War veterans, and also some new hiring initiatives. So first, to give us some background before I introduce the guests. A presumptive disability is a medical condition that qualifies for disability benefits and can be easily identified or presumed. So when somebody sees this particular condition, they can easily get and not have to go through the process of getting SSI because they're labeled as presumed disabled. So now, John Pennington, you with us today?
Yes, sir, I am.
How you doing?
Great. How are you doing?
All right, pretty good. And Rich Lopresti, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good. So give us some background, some of the things that's happening that has developed with this presumptive period, the extension of the presumptive period, and also the importance of getting that designation. And that's for Rich. Rich, go ahead.
Oh, sure. So these three that we're talking about now.
Got a little bit of feedback there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's no problem.
How's that? Is that better?
That's a little bit better, yeah.
All right, sorry about that. These three presumptive conditions for the Gulf War were recently added by the Department of Veteran Affairs in early August, and they are asthma, rhinitis, and sinusitis. And basically, military members that have been exposed to a variety of airborne hazards and contaminants that resulted in one or more of these conditions, and potentially other medical-related conditions, based on the fact that they were on active duty in Afghanistan, Djibouti, Syria, Uzbekistan during the Gulf Wars from September 2001 until the present, and Southeast Asia from 1990 to the present. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to do is we're extending what the presumptive conditions are, allowing veterans to file claims for those conditions, and allowing prior veterans who applied before, they'll have the opportunity to reapply for those benefits as well, based on those conditions.
And John, you want to add to that?
Nope. Rich said pretty well himself, but just want to throw in to add, on top of that, part of the higher initiatives, VA anticipates going to be a huge amount of claims that's going to be filed from veterans present and those that filed in the past that were denied before. So with that being said, nationally, there's a huge hiring initiative called toxic exposure hiring. So Chicago locally, I know we're at least hiring 16 veteran service representatives, which those are the entry-level positions that help gather information for veterans that file claims. And then we're hiring 25 rating veteran service representatives, and those are folks that actually will review all the records, the examination, and will make a decision on the claim whether it's service connected or not, and or assign a percentage to it. So that's what we have going on, a huge hiring initiative nationally, and we anticipate it's not going to stop there. I think throughout the FY22, we're going to hire a lot more people to help with these types of claims, which is huge for the VA.
Yeah, and I think it can't be underestimated how huge this is. This is a really big deal because people don't realize that when we look at the numbers of people that are disabled or people that have who of course have passed away, but people that have come back with all kinds of different disabilities, it's easy to look at someone who's lost a leg or a limb, but oftentimes we don't see the internal damage that sometimes people suffer when they get deployed to different parts of the world for different conflicts. So we talked about, you brought up the Gulf War, for example, when a lot of this started coming into the mainstream media. There is what's called Gulf War syndrome, which is a real thing, which a lot of veterans during that time were denied benefits because they came back with all kinds of ailments based on some of the things they may have been exposed to as far as toxic chemicals and things in the air, particulates and things of that nature that affected everything from their breathing to headaches to joint pain to loss of memory, respiratory issues and things like that. So it's huge that this is actually happening. What's the process for a veteran now to go back and get their situation re-looked at to try to get some of these, to take advantage of some of these new benefits and also this new, to get back on track to get some of the things that they were denied earlier?
Great question. So same process as you find for any other claim. You could go online or go to regional office. We could help and just file a claim for compensation. Just list these. If a veteran has asthma, if they have tinnitus or rhinitis, by all means, they could file it. And then we have people that will be able to take another look at, even if they were denied previously. A lot of talk you hear about new material evidence, and that's kind of things that they will look at, not necessarily looking for new material evidence, but looking at the medical evidence. Did they have treatment for this in the past? Can we go ahead and service connect it? Looking for a medical record. So same process, great question, same process that as you would file a claim, you would just list those conditions if you have them.
Mm-hmm. And then, Rich, can you give us some insight as to what types of experiences in the military, especially being people that were deployed? And keep in mind, this doesn't have to, correct me if I'm wrong, this doesn't have to be limited to people that were deployed. You can be sitting on a post here in the United States or a post overseas somewhere and have been exposed to certain chemicals or certain types of things. But what are some of the experiences that are common where people would fall into this category of having ailments and things that they had a hard time proving? What types of activities did they do in the military and things like that?
Well, I think really now what we're seeing with these new presumptives is exposure in certain areas in the Middle East, from like burn pits and things like that. Jet fuels that were used to start some of those fires for those burn pits, and that exposure, there was, many times there's a haze in the air, a smoke in the air, and guys were, veterans were on duty, and they had to perform their job during this period while all this haze is in the air. So there's definitely exposure there. There are different presumptive conditions that may have you may have had exposure in the mainland. The ones that we're talking about today are truly Gulf War presumptive conditions, and these are three new ones. But as you had mentioned, we also have there's other Gulf War presumptives that are already on the books. Chronic fatigue syndrome is one, fibromyalgia. There's some gastrointestinal disorders as well. And as you said, Gulf War illness is another one. So these particular ones in this higher initiative are basically based on like service overseas. However, there are some presumptive conditions on the books, maybe for exposure to contaminated water or something like that at Camp Lejeune. And there's some other sites in the U.S. But for this particular one, we're basically talking about our Gulf War veterans and our Afghanistan veterans.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's big that you mentioned the burn pits, because that's been a topic that's been going on for a long, long time. It seems like we're just now really starting to get a full handle on exactly what burn pits were, and actually what the exposure and the toxicity level of burn pits in the air and the soil and the food around those things that are going on. Just give people some background. So in the military, you burn basically all your trash. so everything is thrown into a big pit, and they throw everything in there, plus the kitchen sink in it. Yeah, it's the kitchen sink is thrown into a burn pit if you want to throw it away. That's how they dispose of everything. So trucks, even some tires, gasoline, batteries, whatever, thrown into the burn pit. So all that stuff is being burned up, and then now the question is, was there sufficient protective gear given to the troops while they were doing this type of things? I don't know if you guys remember, there was a lawsuit actually back a few years ago from the Gulf War. KBR was sued, or troops tried to sue KBR because they were one of the people that facilitated some of these burn pits, and they actually got their case. They weren't successful in suing KBR because KBR was considered like an arm or an extension of the U.S. government. You can't sue the U.S. government, I guess, in that capacity. So they tried to appeal it to the Supreme Court level. That was actually was denied. They didn't want to pursue it. The Supreme Court didn't want to take a look at that case, but that's a real thing. People out there are suffering and have tons of ailments and exposure. Some of them are chronic, very, very chronic things, painful things. I mean, respiratory issues. People that used to run 5-minute miles can't walk across the street anymore. So having said that, do you see our behavior in the military getting better as far as getting people more protective gear, making sure we have the right equipment in the field, things like that, to prevent some of this stuff from happening again? That's for John. Have you seen anything like that?
Well, firsthand, I don't know. Like I said, I've been retired since 2010, but I do have buddies that are still in and active. But so lessons learned. So we learn a lot from. So I was in during the initial invasion in Iraq. So a lot of those burn pits you speak of. Yep, there is no protective gear. It's like just throw it in the fire and burn it to see what happens. That's basically what happens. But now you'll start seeing more proactive protective measures being taken for all of the troops. So I think there's an uptake in that. I think we're going to start protecting our troops, which is a good thing. So hopefully we could curb some of this, but nothing is probably always 100% effective. So you're still going to have some issues regardless especially if you're looking at the things that are still being burned. Mm-hmm. Hopefully overseas we curb some of that and eliminate without burning it, but I can't speak firsthand because I haven't seen it. I just hear hearsay, secondhand knowledge of it when I talk to some of my buddies who are still serving.
Mm-hmm. And Rich, what about you?
Yeah, no, I think John's exactly right. I think it's a lessons learned situation. And I was retired before like John deployed to the Gulf. But I think the lesson learned part is that the military will try to improve situations as best they can. For us on our side, that's part of our hiring initiative, because if you remember, like back in 2012, we were like 600,000 claims behind at the VA. And by 2017, we had gotten that down to under 100,000. And I think with this new set of presumptives, we understand that we're going to have a lot of people filing these claims. And it's not just in the past. There's still present people that haven't maybe filed claims yet, and they're going to file. So by doing this hiring initiative, like John said, we're hiring somewhere around 50 people locally, but there's about 1,800 people being hired nationwide. And it's very possible that that's just the first round. So we've learned our lessons from being behind in the past, and we're trying to move forward. So I would imagine as another arm of the government, the military would also be doing the same thing. Lessons learned. We're trying to do things better. We're trying to protect our soldiers, our veterans, our citizens. So that that kind of comes as you learn from the past, and we catch up with the science. These are the things that we can understand and move forward with on a better footing, maybe.
And once again, how do you find out about these jobs for the new hiring initiative? So where do they go? Do you have a number or contact information in order to find out where these jobs are? That's for John or Rich, both of you guys. John, we lost your audio for a second.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
I'm sorry. So the best place I recommend going is usajobs.gov. So all the government jobs are always posted there. usajobs.gov. Best place to go with all the hiring initiatives. Maybe they want to move to Florida. They're hiring as well. So it's nationally. So you'll start seeing a lot of jobs being posted there by the VA.
And then, Rich, what are some of the things, answer that too as well, but also what are some of the things that a vet needs to do to prepare for the job application process?
Sure. And that's kind of where I was going with that. This hiring initiative is kind of twofold. We're hiring people to help serve the veterans, but we're also hiring veterans. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to give them jobs as well. You just need, you can go to the USA job site, like John said, and you prepare your resume. The USA job site is very user-friendly when it comes to that. It can help you get your information together, generate a resume, and then it's a step-by-step process. It will tell you exactly what documents you need. For example, if you're a disabled veteran, you may need a particular letter that shows that you have a disability. You'll need your DD-214 if you're a veteran that's applying. And then you'll just go through the process. Your application will be reviewed. If you're recommended, then you'll go through the next steps in the hiring process, which would include an interview or review of your resume, and then potentially a job offer at the end. So again, we're hiring veterans, but we're also serving veterans. So I think with this one, we can make a big impact.
What kind of jobs are are out there for veterans? I mean, what's the main categories of jobs, and then what are some of the cool stuff you might have heard about? John, you have that information?
Yeah. So for us, Reed's locally, we're doing VSRs and RVSRs. Those are some of the great jobs. It's behind the desk. You get to serve veterans, continue to serve fellow veterans, taking a look at claims, gathering evidence, writing medical exams, assigning I think what some of the cool part of once you become a rating veteran service representative rather, where you get to review the evidence and assign a percentage to a disability by using all the laws and regulations. I think that's one of the cooler parts of the job. Or sometimes we may be hiring like public contact representatives where you're one-on-one with the veteran, so when they come to the office, you get to speak with them one-on-one. I think those are cooler jobs in the service center that we have at Chicago Regional Office.
Rich, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and I think that the career advancement is really excellent at the VA. John didn't start as an assistant service center manager, and I didn't start in my current role. I started as a VSR, which is the claims processor John was talking about. A couple of years after that, I put in for the rating VSR and got that, and then very shortly after that became the management analyst in the director's office. So the opportunities are there. You come in. We are in Chicago. We're a very high-performing office, and because we're a high-performing office, we expect the people that come in to be high performers as well. Well, that benefits you as well because you'll be given other opportunities as both John and I have within the VA. So it's not a matter of, you get your foot in the door and you perform really well and you're helping veterans at that time and you're learning from the ground up. These positions are basically learning from the claims process from the ground up. But it opens up a world of opportunities for you. Again, like John's path is, VSR, coach, service center, assistant service center manager, and he'll go beyond that. My path is a little bit different, but they're intertwined because we work in the same office. We are both serving veterans.
And what are some of the skill sets you need? What are the employers looking for when they want to hire veterans, or particularly veterans with disabilities? Or have some kind of service-related issue that are presumptive disabled, for example. And that's for Rich.
Well, so we're really good with accommodating disabilities. Any kind of reasonable accommodation we can accommodate. The skill sets that we're looking for coming in, though, we're looking for workload management skills. Really important is attention to detail, flexibility, and then you really need to have a passion to serve veterans. This job is, you're sitting at a computer, you're very focused. It's not an office environment where you're out and about talking to your coworkers and everything. It's really, you're focused on the computer, you're digging through evidence to help the veteran with his claim. So you need to be able to focus on what's in front of you, really highly attention to details, because it's possible that if you're looking for some medical evidence from a few years ago in someone's handwritten medical file, you really have to pay attention. You have to take your time to make sure that you find that evidence. But it's important that you find it because you're trying to connect the veteran's current illness to something that happened in the past. So that's really what we're looking for: workload management skills, attention to detail, flexibility, and again, a passion for serving veterans. We not all of us are veterans in the VA, but an awful large number are.
Mm-hmm. And John, I want you to add to that, but also I want you to answer this question as well: the importance of having veterans serving other veterans. As oftentimes veterans, when they seek help, sometimes it's not always a great interaction when you have a person who's had experiences that the person they're talking to, trying to help them, has never had and really can't relate to. So add to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think everything that Rich said I agree with, and what he alluded to earlier is what we're also looking for is strong work ethic. So like Rich said, we're a high performing station. We're outstanding. We don't want anyone that's fully successful or is okay with just being mediocre. I mean, days of that is long gone from Chicago. We want do the best you can each and every day, and I'll steal the old Army phrase or date myself, be all you can be every day. Like, be outstanding. That's what we want here. I think having veterans, serving veterans is important. So like Rich said, that majority of the employees here are veterans themselves or have ties to veterans, meaning being married to it, fathers, brothers, sisters. I think it's important, especially if you're talking to a veteran about PTSD. It's always easier when you can relate if you have similar experiences and when you could talk to them like brothers and sisters in arms, right? So same experiences. I think sometimes having veterans talking to veterans, it just transitions and the conversations go a lot smoother than just having some guy that just graduated college, don't know what you've been through, trying to talk to you about your medical conditions. But not saying that non-veterans can't work, but a lot of non-veterans here, like I said, have ties to veterans, so they have a huge understanding of what every veteran went through.
I think you touched on a great thing too, John and Rich. The passion that you have for the work that you're doing, and being a veteran gives you that passion because you've been through it yourself. You understand. Once you put on a uniform and you've done anything, I don't care who you are. I've never met a veteran who will never help another veteran. I've never met anybody like that. You know, every veteran wants to help veterans. It's what we do here at America's Heroes Group. It's what I see all the time with veteran service organizations. So I think that's critical. Now, to turn it a little bit more personal for you guys, because both of you guys are military veterans yourselves, and you guys, and both of you deployed? John, you said you were deployed. Rich, were you ever deployed?
No, I was actually out before the most recent deployment.
Okay.
So I was fortunate in that way.
Okay. The reason why I asked that is because when you look back on your military service, is there anything that that sometimes you worry about? Do you ever get worried or concerned about things you might have been exposed to yourself personally? Do you ever think about maybe how your health could evolve over the years, or maybe have you had a health issue? If you can talk about that.
Well, yeah, I know for myself. So I was there during the initial invasion, and my past life, my first job in the Army, I was a chemical officer. So we're always mopped up, and I know what comes to mind in our unit, that there was a huge plant fire. So we had like sulfur smoke throughout the air. I think that still scares some of us. We don't know the long-term effect about being exposed to sulfur for long periods of time, what that even does to you. I think that's a big scare. I think burn pits, that's huge, because I think everyone who was downrange whether you're an officer or all the way down to a private buck sergeant, you're all exposed to it. But I think for me personally, I think that is always on back of my mind. And I'm also a disabled veteran myself, and some of these respiratory issues, sometimes I'm like, man, maybe I have that, or maybe I'm just out of shape and overweight. I don't really know. But yeah, but those are always sitting on the back of my mind. Like, I don't know what the long-term effect's going to be on this. So yeah, for me personally, that's what I go through.
I think that's valuable to hear that. I really appreciate you telling us that, because I think the same thing a lot of times. See, I was never deployed, but working as a mechanic in the military and dealing with sometimes weird stuff, chemicals, jet fuel, and things like that. And when you're a kid, you don't really think about what these things are made out of, and then you learn later on, oh, if you burn jet fuel, this is what happens, or if you do this to this chemical, this is what happens. And you're not wearing any protective gear. We didn't even have masks or any of that kind of stuff when we did anything we did. So we deal with all kinds of chemicals and stuff, all kinds of weird stuff that people are trying to experiment with to do whatever they need to do with the equipment and things like that. So, Rich, do you have anything to add to that, or any experiences you might want to share?
Well, I would just say too that I don't think for the general public that people are really aware of just the general wear and tear on your body going through. You were saying you weren't deployed. I wasn't as well, but the training cycles and the wear and tear and wearing the rucksacks around all the time, your knees, your back, your ankles, everything gets affected over time. And certainly you don't want to downplay that, because there's a pretty large period of time where we really didn't have a lot of people deployed. If you go, prior to 2000, we had the Gulf War I. But there's a lot of veterans that have issues that were training issues, like back injuries and things like that. So there is that other stuff out there. You don't have to be deployed to file a claim. You just have to be a veteran, and I think that's very important as well, because they've earned those benefits the same as they served during their time, and regardless of what was going on during your time, you still answered the call and stood up, and those benefits are yours. So you really need to apply for them.
Mm-hmm. And one thing, I always bring this topic up, and we don't have a lot of time, about a minute left. But John, quickly, and also Rich, so first John, then Rich, answer me this question if you can. And I'm saying that colloquially, but I'm saying this seriously at the same time, real talk. So the Persian Gulf War was 90 to 91, okay? It's 2021. Now we're now just getting around to dealing with these types of issues and things like that from the Gulf War. And, that Gulf War, this is a cascade of issues. I mean, to give you some numbers, during the Persian Gulf War, Gulf War I, when they call it, war to get Iraq out of Kuwait, 1,143 casualties. Okay, so out of that, 294 deaths, 849 wounded. And we're having cascade thousands of people coming forth and saying, hey, I'm having these issues from Gulf War syndrome. I'm having problems breathing, having problems with memory, having problems with cognitive issues, things like that. We just had this last conflict. That's 32,000 people now we're talking about this coming out of the last conflict. Why does it take so long? In 30 seconds or like 10 seconds, really? John, can you answer that question?
Right. I think there's a lot of medical and science that goes behind this. I mean, if you're even looking at Vietnam vets, there's still new presumptive that was just signed into law last year. So it just takes time. I think we all know that we were exposed to it, and that's what came from it. But I think from a medical science standpoint, I think it goes through a lot. Then it has to go through red tape, per se, politics, and get those laws passed. So I think these burn pits are our generation's Agent Orange.
I hear you. So thanks for joining us, gentlemen. This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.